Outlander movie is actually happening, and the first trailer just dropped, and I genuinely cannot stop watching it. Jamie and Claire are back, and what they're bringing with them is going to absolutely destroy us emotionally. Okay, so let me just take a breath here because I have been waiting for this moment for so long, and now that it's actually real, I genuinely don't know where to start. After that devastating, beautiful, confusing, and emotionally overwhelming series finale, most of us were left sitting in silence just staring at the screen. We had questions. So many questions. And for months, all we got was silence, a few vague interviews, and Matthew Roberts saying things like, maybe, when asked about a movie. And honestly, that maybe was enough to keep my hope alive because it wasn't a no. And now here we are, and it turns out that maybe has become a yes. The first trailer for the Outlander movie has officially dropped, and the moment I pressed play, I felt that familiar feeling in my chest again. That specific kind of feeling that only Outlander has ever managed to give me. It's this mix of excitement and heartache and wonder all wrapped into one, and I genuinely forgot how much I missed it until it hit me all at once. If you've been a fan of this show since the very beginning, then you already know exactly what I'm talking about. This isn't just a show. It was never just a show. It was 12 years of our lives, and seeing it come back in the form of a movie feels like getting a piece of something back that you didn't even realize you had lost. Now before I get into everything the trailer is showing us, I want to talk about where we left off, because the ending of Season 8 Episode 10 is the entire foundation of what this movie is building on. And if you watched that finale, you know it didn't give us clean answers. It gave us something far more complicated than that. We saw Jamie and Claire open their eyes and take that sharp, sudden breath of air, and the entire fandom basically split into two camps overnight. Half of us believed Claire had somehow pulled Jamie back from the edge of death, that she had sacrificed something enormous to bring him back, and that they were both alive and breathing in the real world. The other half believed that breath of air wasn't about waking up at all. That it was about crossing over together, that Jamie and Claire awakened side by side not in the land of the living but somewhere beyond it entirely. Matthew Roberts, when pressed for answers, refused to settle the debate. He told fans that every single person who watches gets to decide for themselves, that he deliberately left it open so the audience could bring their own meaning to it. And while I actually respect that creative choice, I also think after everything this fandom has been through, after 12 years of loyalty and heartbreak and joy and waiting, we deserve something more. We deserve to know. And I genuinely believe this movie is going to be the thing that finally gives us that clarity, or at the very least, moves the story forward in a way that makes the answer undeniable. Because here's the thing. The trailer doesn't just tease us with pretty visuals and dramatic music. It's showing us things that are actually answering questions. There are moments in it that are clearly set after the finale, after that ridge, after that night, after everything. And the fact that we're seeing Jamie and Claire together, moving through the world, making choices, facing something new, that already tells us something. Whether they're alive in the traditional sense or existing in some form beyond what we fully understand, they are still together. And for this fandom, honestly, that might be the only thing that truly matters at the end of the day. But there is so much more going on in this trailer than just their reunion, and we need to talk about all of it piece by piece. Let's start with what the trailer is actually showing us, because there is a lot to unpack and every single frame feels intentional. The first thing that immediately caught my attention was the setting. We are not at the ridge anymore. And that detail alone is enormous because the ridge was home. The ridge was safety and family and everything Jamie and Claire had built together over decades. So seeing them somewhere completely different, somewhere unfamiliar, in a landscape that feels both ancient and unsettling at the same time, that immediately tells you that something has changed in a very fundamental way. They didn't just survive whatever happened that night. Their entire world shifted. And honestly, when you think about it, that makes complete sense. Because if you remember, one of the biggest theories floating around after the finale was that Jamie and Claire simply could not stay at the ridge after what happened. Think about it from the perspective of everyone living there. Everyone saw Jamie get shot. Everyone watched him go down. And everyone watched Claire refuse to leave his side, sleeping beside him through the entire night, staying with him every single second, just waiting. And then suddenly, against every possible odd, they both woke up. Jamie, who by every logical measure should have been dead, was alive and breathing and standing on his own 2 feet. That is not something the people of that era would have processed quietly or calmly. That is the kind of thing that gets people accused of witchcraft. That gets people feared, hunted, and driven out, and then layer on top of that the theory about Claire's hair. So many fans, myself included, have believed that Claire's hair turning completely white wasn't just a visual detail or a sign of aging. It was evidence of a sacrifice. The belief is that Claire gave years of her own life to save Jamie, that she transferred something deeply personal and irreversible to pull him back. And if that's true, if she walked out of that room with completely white hair while Jamie walked beside her fully alive, you can only imagine the reaction from the people around them. These are people who already existed in a world where superstition and fear drove enormous decisions. Seeing something like that wouldn't just make them uncomfortable. It would terrify them. And terrified people in that era did not ask questions first. They acted, and they acted fast, and they acted without mercy. So the fact that the trailer is showing us Jamie and Claire somewhere new, somewhere away from everything they built, it's not just a change of scenery for the sake of keeping things visually interesting. It feels like a consequence. It feels like they had no choice. They survived something miraculous, and the very miracle that saved them is the same thing that made it impossible for them to stay. And there is something so deeply Outlander about that. This show has always been about Jamie and Claire being pulled apart by forces bigger than themselves, being separated by time and circumstance and history, and then finding their way back to each other anyway. So even in this movie, even after everything, the universe is still finding new ways to test them. And they are still choosing each other through all of it. But here is where the trailer starts getting truly interesting, because it's not just showing us Jamie and Claire navigating a new location and a new set of challenges. There are glimpses of something much bigger happening around them. There are moments that feel connected to the time travel mythology in a way that goes deeper than anything the show explored even in its later seasons. And that has me absolutely convinced that this movie is going to crack open the parts of this universe that were always hinted at but never fully explained. We still don't know how time travel truly works in this world. We still don't know whether changing history is actually possible or whether every traveler is simply moving along a path that was always going to happen exactly the way it did. And we still, after all this time, do not know the full story of Master Raymond. His presence in this universe always felt like the surface of something enormous, and the trailer is giving me very strong feelings that we are finally about to go deeper. Now let's talk about Master Raymond, because I feel like this is the conversation the fandom has needed to have for a very long time. He has always been one of the most fascinating and mysterious figures in this entire universe, and the show never gave us nearly enough of him. We got glimpses. We got hints. We got just enough to understand that he was something far beyond what he appeared to be on the surface. He wasn't just an apothecary. He wasn't just a healer. He was something ancient and knowing and deeply connected to the forces that move through this world in ways that ordinary people simply cannot perceive. And every single time he appeared on screen, he brought with him this feeling that there was an entire layer of this story happening underneath everything else, a layer we were never quite allowed to see clearly. And then there was that moment with Claire. Because if you remember, and I think most of us do, there was that extraordinary scene where Master Raymond saved Claire's life and she felt it. She didn't just experience being healed. She felt something transfer. She described it as a blue light surrounding her bones, moving through her, changing something inside her at a level that went far beyond physical healing. And I have always believed, from the very first time I watched that scene, that Master Raymond didn't just save her life in that moment. He gave her something. He transferred a piece of whatever he carries inside him directly into her. And that transfer is what has always made Claire different from other time travelers. It's what gave her that extra sensitivity, that deeper connection to the stones, that instinct that always seemed to guide her even when logic had no answers. And now think about what Claire potentially did for Jamie at the end of the finale. If she truly gave years of her own life to save him, if that sacrifice was real and that transfer actually happened, then the same logic applies. Whatever Master Raymond gave Claire, whatever that blue light was, whatever ancient power lives inside her because of that moment, she may have passed a portion of it into Jamie. And if that is true, then Jamie Fraser, the man who spent the entire run of this show watching Claire disappear through stones he could never follow her through, the man who waited 20 years not knowing if she was alive or dead, that man might now be a time traveler himself. And I genuinely cannot think of a more perfect and emotionally devastating direction for this movie to take. Because think about what that would mean for their story. Their entire relationship across 12 years of television was defined by that imbalance. Claire could travel. Jamie could not. And that difference created the central tragedy of everything they went through. The separation. The waiting. The not knowing. All of it came from that one fundamental gap between them. So if the movie is giving Jamie that ability, if it's finally closing that gap and putting them on equal footing for the first time ever, then this isn't just a continuation of their story. It's a transformation of it. It's the universe finally saying that these two people have suffered enough separation and deserve to move through time and history and whatever comes next completely side by side. And the trailer is hinting at exactly this. There are moments in it that feel like they are set across different time periods, not just one. There are visual textures and details that suggest we are moving through more than a single era, and that strongly implies that time travel is at the center of this movie's story in a way that is more active and more intentional than it ever was in the show. In the show, time travel often felt like something that happened to Claire, something she was pulled into rather than something she chose. But what the trailer is suggesting feels different. It feels like this time, the traveling is purposeful. Like Jamie and Claire are going somewhere specific, looking for something specific, or someone specific. And that shift from passive to active, from being pulled through time to choosing to move through it, changes everything about the energy of the story.